على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المهديين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله نعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. صدق الله العظيم. Today is the eve of 4th Shaban, and by Allah's grace, we are celebrating a very important birth of a very important individual, a very illustrious personality, somebody who is a fierce defender of the Ahlul, somebody who is a valiant fighter of the Ahlul, somebody who believed in the wilayah of the Ahlul, and somebody who gave his entire life for the protection and the continuity of Islam. We celebrate the birth of Abbas on this night. And inshallah, what I'd like to do is, in the beginning part of today's lecture, I'd like to talk a little bit about some historical aspects of his life. And the second half, we will look at one quality that Abbas had in his life and see what we can do in order to inculcate that within us. For us Shias and lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, Abbas is an icon of courage. He's an icon of loyalty. Somebody who's a loyal servant of the Ahlul Bayt. Somebody throughout his life, his purpose was to serve the Ahlul Bayt, serve the religion of Islam. And he did this in the best way possible. As we will discuss tonight, we find that Abbas, he never wavered, he never was fluctuating in his iman. Every moment of his life, he was somebody who was obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was obeying the Prophet of Allah. He was obeying the Imam of his time. That's why so beautifully we recite in the Ziyarah, As-salamu alayka ayyul abdus salih. Peace be upon you, O righteous servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-muti'u lillah, the one who is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa li rasulihi, and the messenger of Allah. Wa li amir al-mu'mineen, the one who is obedient to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Wal Hasani wal Husayn, the one who was obedient to who? To the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. If there was one quality that stands out in Abbas's personality, it was this. It was loyalty, it was obedience. And we can see this throughout his life, and this manifests in those final moments in his life when he's about to depart this world, and his Mawla, his Abba Imam Husayn, comes to him, and he asks Imam Husayn this question, that Hal Wafayt, have I been loyal to you? Because for him, the definition of life was loyalty to the Ahlul Bayt, was sacrifice for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And this can only be attained when a person has clarity in their lives. If a person has clarity in their religion, then a person can act in a manner which is filled with clarity. When a person acts in a manner which is filled with conviction. And this is who Abul Fadl Abbas is. One of those qualities that Abul Fadl Abbas attained was his quality of conviction. But his personality was so great that all of the qualities and all of the merits that were attainable for a human being, Abul Fadl Abbas, he attained all of them. And he becomes a source of inspiration for us. He becomes a source of motivation for us. That this is who we want to emulate. This is who we want to be like. And so what we'll do tonight is we'll try to look at some aspects of his life, even though, unfortunately, there's not a lot of information about him. And when I was preparing and researching, the amount of information and details about his life is very much limited. But whatever I've found, inshallah, I will present to you. One of the reasons why so much information is not available about him is because in one sense, he's overshadowed by some great personalities. He's overshadowed by the personality of Imam Husayn. Of course, Imam Husayn, he occupies the position of Imamah. And the relationship between Abu Fadl Abbas and Imam Husayn is a relationship between servant and master, between Ma'mun and Imam. So naturally what happens is more attention is given to the one who is the leader. And this is something that we find throughout history. If we look at the life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, we don't find a very detailed history of Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn in their lives. Most of the emphasis, most of the focus is put on Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib because he is the leader. Similarly, in this sense, there's not that much information about Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, but whatever information that we have about him, these are lessons for us to learn from. When we look into history, we see that most of the historians, they didn't go into a very deep history of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And perhaps the reason was that because when they were tasked by the authorities of the time to write about historical events, their focus was more so about political and social dimensions of the Muslim community. So they didn't go into a very deep dive into the lives of the Aimam alayhi and the family members of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. But fortunately, what we have is we have some glimpses, we have some traditions from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam that show that Abu Fadl Abbas is not a normal person. He's not your average person. He's somebody who has reached the peaks of Iman. And as we go through some examples from his life, we'll see at what level Abu Fadl Abbas is. Sallallahu Muhammad wa Even though we don't find much information about him, this does not at all in any way diminish who he was. Abu Fadl Abbas was a great personality, one of the most illustrious personalities that we have in Islam. Abu Fadl Abbas was born in the month of Shaban, on the 4th of Shaban. There's a bit of disagreement exactly what year Abu Fadl Abbas was born. The prominent opinion is that he was born in 26 after Hijri. This is what the vast majority of scholars believe in. And then obviously he was martyred in 61 after Hijri, so he was, at the time of his death, he was 34 years. There is another opinion which Abu Fadl Abbas is born in the 18th year after Hijri. And so that would make him the age of 42 at the time of Karbala. And the reason why this is important is because we have traditions that talk about Abu Fadl Abbas in some of the battles with Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and in the Battle of Siffin, in the Battle of Nahrawan. So if we take this age of 11 years, which is a prominent view, then it's a bit difficult to believe. Whereas if we believe he was born in 18 after Hijri, then this would make him approximately 19 years of age. And so those accounts that are given to us about his bravery in battle, they would be a little bit more believable. However, our ulama have said that the youth of Bani Hashim, they're not normal youth. They've been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ways that we cannot imagine. And we have the events of Karbala that establish this for us. We have the example of Qasim, boy of 12 years of age, and going and defending his uncle, defending the religion of Islam in a most defiant manner. So for us, it's not something unbelievable or so far-fetched that Abu Fadl Abbas, at the age of 11, was able to go and secure these great victories in Islam. Sallallahu Muhammad wa His mother is al-Banin, and al-Banin is a very interesting story how Imam Ali became married to her. After the martyrdom of Sayyid Fatima, Imam Ali was looking for another woman to get married to. So he asked his brother Aqil, that Aqil, I want you to go and look into the genealogy, and look into the history of the tribes, and find someone who comes from a tribe who's extremely brave and courageous and valiant. Aqil was somebody who was an expert in history. He knew all of the genealogy very well. He came to Imam Ali and he said that there's a tribe and they have a daughter, and the daughter's name is Fatima. And this tribe is very well known for their courage, and they have a warrior spirit in them. And the father's name is Hizam ibn Khalid. And Imam knew obviously who this person was, but it's a lesson for us that when it comes to time for marriage, that we're supposed to do a little bit of research, we're supposed to put in a little bit of time to see the background of the family. So Imam, he hears about this woman, and so he tells Aqil that I agree, let us go and make this proposal. So Aqil goes to the father, Nizam ibn Khalid, and says that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib would like to marry your daughter. And so Hizam, being the loyal servant of Ahlul Bayt that he is, he immediately gave his daughter's hand into marriage, and the marriage ceremony took place. But some of the beautiful characteristics of al-Baneen, they begin to really come out. And we can see why Abbas was the way that he was. According to one narration, after the marriage ceremony was done, al-Baneen, she was coming to the house of Imam Ali. And before she entered into the house of Imam Ali, she asked for Lady Zainab to come out. She said, this house belongs to Zainab. That this woman, Zainab, this daughter, she was only 17, 18 years of age, but she said, this house belongs to Zainab salamullahi alayha. And so I'm not going to enter into this house until I get permission from her. And so she requests, Baneen requests, that Lady Zainab comes out. And when Lady Zainab comes out, she comes and she asks for permission before entering into the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And she displays this utmost respect and this utmost honor for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. According to other narrations, that when she first entered the house of Imam Ali, Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn were both ill. And immediately she went and took care of them. She began nursing them until they recovered. This woman, Baneen, she's at the peak of humility. She's at the peak of humbleness. And these are extremely strong qualities that mothers need to have in order to pass on to the youth. When, after a few days, she was living in the house, she gathered all the children of Imam Ali and Lady Fatima, and she said to them that even though her name was Fatima al-Kalbiya, she said that, do not call me Fatima, because this house has only one Fatima, and that is Fatima bint Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she said, I don't want you to call me Fatima, because I know how much sadness comes in your heart when you hear the name of your mother. So don't call me Fatima. This house has only one Fatima, and that's Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from that day on, she changed her name to something else. And so she said, I'm coming into this house to be a servant of Fatima. I'm coming into the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen not to replace Fatima, I'm coming to serve the children of Fatima. So she's somebody who displayed this utmost respect and utmost honor. And this is naturally something which passed down. And this is something which is important because for most of us, a lot of our qualities that we have, it comes from our mother. When we talk about the love of the Ahlul Bayt, when we talk about our level of piety, of course both mothers and fathers have a role in it, but the vast majority of it comes from the mother. There's a beautiful hadith that we have from Imam Sadiq, where he says, Man wajada barda hubbina ahlul bayt. He says, the one who has the coolness and the soothing sensation of our love, the Ahlul Bayt, in their hearts, what should they do? فَلْيُكْثِرُ الدُّعَاء لِأُمِّهِ. And they should do dua excessively for who? For their mothers. That love of the Ahlul Bayt, it gets passed down to us from our mothers. So Imam Sadiq is saying that if you find love of the Ahlul Bayt in your hearts, know that the main reason why it's there is because of your mothers. And so we find that Baneen was like this. She was somebody who was loyal to the Imam of her time. She was somebody who was obedient. She was somebody who, at a time where Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't have many companions, many of Imam's companions, they abandoned him, they left him. The lady Baneen, she was so strong, despite whatever circumstances there were, she was always next to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. So when the 4th of Shaban came, the eldest son Abbas was born. And it's a time of joy for the Ahlul Bayt, it's a time of joy for Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn, Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha. But there's also a degree of sadness in the house, because they know with the birth of this child, it brings in mind that the events of Karbala are going to happen. So after Abul Fadl Abbas was born, Imam Ali goes and he recites the adhan and the iqamah in the ears of Abul Fadl Abbas, and he begins to weep and cry. And when he sees Baneen come, he wipes away his tears. Baneen takes the child and she swallows him into a blanket. And Amir al-Mu'mineen is coming back and forth to the child. At one moment what he does is that he goes to the child and takes the blanket off of him, and he begins to look at the arms of Abul Fadl Abbas, and he begins to cry. He begins to weep. And al-Baneen comes into the room, and she comes into the room, and she's worried that why is it that Amir al-Mu'mineen is crying over this child? Is there something wrong with the child? So she goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen and asks, is there something wrong? Is there some type of deficiency in this child? Imam Ali says that these child's arms that are here, they're going to be given in the way of Islam. They're going to go and serve his brother in order to protect Islam. So Imam is seeing this foreshadowing of his event, which is of Karbala, which is going to be happening. So from this young age, Abul Fadl Abbas is growing in his house. He has beautiful ethics that he's learning from his mother, obviously from his father Amir al-Mu'mineen, from Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn. But all of this, it comes from his mother. And we see that this trickles down to him. There's some examples that we have in history, how Abul Fadl Abbas treated other members of the Ahlul Bayt. Whenever he would enter the room and Imam Hassan or Imam Husayn were sitting there, he would ask them permission before entering. He wouldn't just walk in, barge in. No, the level of adab which he had, the level of honor and respect that he had, didn't allow him to do that. If in the room Imam Hassan was sitting or Imam Husayn was sitting, he would seek permission. After gaining permission, then he would come and sit down. And when he would come and he would sit down, he would sit in a very humble manner, with his head down, with much humility. He would sit in what they call Rozanu, right? And sit in a very humble manner in front of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain. He would never speak unless he was spoken to. He would never fight, he would never argue, he would never quarrel with them. Whenever he wanted to speak to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain, he never called them by his names. He would say, Sayyid, Mawlai, my Imam, my master, my leader, Yabna Rasulullah. He would always address them with the utmost respect. There's a story which is narrated where Imam Husayn is in the masjid and he's delivering his speech or he's talking to some people and he requested a little bit of water. And Abu Fadl Abbas is there, and before anybody else could get up, he gets up and he runs out of the masjid. He goes to the water fountain and he brings a glass of water and he brings it back to Imam Husayn and he gives it to him in the most humble of manners. And so we see that Abu Fadl Abbas from a very young age, what is he doing? He's showing respect, he's showing honor to the Ahlul Bayt. And brothers and sisters, these are the keys for our salvation. When we lower ourselves to the Ahlul Bayt, when we attach ourselves to the Ahlul Bayt, when we serve the cause of Ahlul Bayt, this is our means of salvation. There's another story which is narrated that Abu Fadl Abbas was in the house and his mother or his father or one of the servants, they gave him a vine of grapes. And these were very delicious grapes. As soon as he was handed these grapes, he ran out of the house. And so they asked him, Ya Abu Fadl, where are you going? He said, I'm going to go and look for my Mawla Imam Husayn. These grapes, I don't want to enjoy them until my Imam enjoys them first. And so we see these very stark and beautiful qualities that come out in his personality, which show his commitment and his attachment to the Ahlul Bayt. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so this is also a very important lesson for us, because the Ahlul Bayt, they're an ideal family. We should strive to be like them. The type of relationships that are between them, between the members, between the siblings, between the parents and the children, it should be there. This type of respect that he had for his brothers is something which we should have. There's a hadith from Imam Razavi alayhi salam where he says, Al-Akhul Akbar bimanzilat al-Ab, that the elder's child or the elder's son or the elder siblings, they're at the position of the father. Which means what? Which means that we as younger siblings, that we should have the utmost respect for our elder siblings, that we should honor them, we should respect them. And of course the elder siblings, they also need to act in a manner in which they're deserving of respect, which means not abusing that relationship. And so we find this family of the Ahlul Bayt, they have the best relations, they have very strong bonds, and the care and the sympathy which Abu Fadl Abbas had in his life, it made him who he was. This family is who we should strive to be. These examples that we have from the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, they're meant so that we emulate them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His ultimate mercy, He didn't just give us a book, He didn't just give us instructions and say do this and don't do that. No, He actually gave us examples who take the teachings of Islam and actually go and implement it. So we can see it and we can make it relevant in our lives. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We have other narration in history where it says that Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn took the utmost care of Abul Fadl Abbas. They would always be with Abbas. They would always talk to him, train him, support him, do whatever they can to make sure that he grows into a young and strong human being. One of the beautiful dimensions that we see in the life of Abul Fadl Abbas is this relationship between Abbas and his father Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen obviously is his father. He has other responsibilities. He has other duties. But we see some important lessons when it comes to tarbiyah, when it comes to how do we raise our children. And so there's a beautiful story which is narrated that Imam Ali is sitting with Abul Fadl Abbas and he's teaching him how to count. And so he tells Abbas to say one. So Abul Fadl Abbas is one. And then Imam tells Abul Fadl Abbas to say two. And Abul Fadl Abbas wouldn't say the number two. And his father is saying, say number two. And he's refusing to say number two. So he asks him, my son, Ya Bunayya, why aren't you saying the number two? He said, after this tongue has professed the oneness and unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can I say the number two? And so when Imam Ali heard this response from Abbas, maybe 4 or 5 years of age, maybe even younger, Imam is filled with so much joy that I've been granted with such a son with such deep wisdom. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so naturally, when we are surrounded by these types of individuals, that light also comes into our hearts. So Abbas is growing in this type of household. He's growing in this type of family, where on one hand he has Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Husayn. On the other hand, he has Lady Zainab, salamullahi alayha. Lady Zainab, she used to be somebody who always used to take care of Abbas because she was much older than him. She would take care of him almost like his mother. She was always caring for him. And she would always ensure that Abul Fadl Abbas was in the most comfortable state. There's a very beautiful narration which was reported that Abul Fadl Abbas, he said that I never saw Sayyid al-Zahra because obviously he was born after. He said, I never saw Sayyid al-Zahra, but who I did see was Sayyid al-Zainab, salamullahi alayha. And the way that Sayyid Zainab used to be in the house, her manner of talking, her manner of speaking, her manner of walking, all of her attributes, it gave me a glimpse into who Lady Zahra was. And whenever I would see Lady Zainab, whenever I would see my elder sister Zainab, I used to remember the mother of Zahra, and remember the mother of Zainab, and remember how great of a woman she was. Every moment I used to see Zainab, the love in my heart for Zahra salamullahi alayha would only increase. So we see these examples in the life of Abul Fadl Abbas, where he's getting all of these positive influences. And so we can see that he's being trained for something big. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so this relationship which he's having with his siblings, with Imam Hassan, Imam Husayn, with Lady Zainab, salamullahi alayhim, it's not a relationship of just brother and sister. It's a deeper relationship. It's a relationship of wilaya. It's a relationship of deep connection and deep attachment to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. At the same time, Abul Fadl Abbas, as he's growing, he's very tall for his age. He's strong, he's very muscular. His physique is very striking. And so even at a young age, Abul Fadl Abbas is known for his strength. He's known for his power, the way he used to walk, the way he used to talk. They used to know that this was the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He used to walk with such confidence, with such poise, that he adopted this from his father, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. And so we understand when the mother and the father behave in a certain manner and give proper tarbiyah, then the children are also going to turn out like this. You know, we find some examples in the life of Abul Fadl Abbas, how he used to go and help other people who don't have those things that they need in their life. They're destitute, they're impoverished. And we hear these examples in the life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. How much he used to love the orphans, how much he used to spend time with those who were impoverished, with those who were poor. There's a beautiful tradition that we have, that one of the companions of Imam Ali, he would say that I used to see Imam Ali in Kufa. And what he used to do was he used to gather the orphans. And when he would gather the orphans around him, he would have a jar of honey. And then he would put his finger in a jar of honey and put it in the mouth of every one of those orphans. And he would do it with so much care. He would do it in such a tender manner that this would say, So when I saw Imam behaving in that manner with these orphans, it's like at that moment I wish I was an orphan. And I was at the receiving end of Imam Ali, receiving his honey from his finger. That's how Imam Ali was. Even with those people who did not have their parents, Imam Ali was like a tender and caring father. And so naturally what we find is these qualities, they pass down to the next generation. And so we find that Imam Ali, just like he gave attention to the orphan, he also gave attention to Abu Abbas. Whenever Imam would go out of the city, whenever he had some work to do, he would always take Abu Abbas with him. According to some traditions, we have that Imam Ali used to go out and he used to dig wells. And he used to go in the ground with a shovel and dig and dig and dig until water would come out. And then he would say, this is a waqf, this is an endowment. Many times he would bring Abbas with him, right? And he would encourage Abbas to go and help him and assist him. And so we find these different examples. When Imam Ali would, for example, go and work in the garden, he would take Abbas with him. When he would go and dig, when he would go and plant the seeds, when he would go and water and carry the heavy vessels, Abu Abbas was always with him. And he's teaching Abu Abbas from a young age how to be a man, how to be mature, and how to be strong. When Abbas became a little bit older, Imam began to teach him how to throw a spear, how to fight with a sword, how to shoot an arrow, how to hold armor. He taught him the entire art of war. Imam Ali, taught an expert battleman. He used to go teach Abu Fadl how to go and attack the enemy lines, where to look for the weaknesses. All of the skills that Abu Fadl Abbas had, he learned from none other than his father. Other times we find that Imam Ali, he would be delivering a speech and he would tell Abu Fadl Abbas, I want you to sit here and I want you to listen. I want you to pay attention. I want you to increase your knowledge. And so we find Abu Fadl Abbas is growing in a very wholesome manner. His entire existence is proportionate to one another. And so we see that all of this is preparation for a very important event that is happening. According to some other traditions that we have, is that Imam Ali used to go in the middle of the night and he used to carry a sack. And in that sack, he would put oil and dates and other things, other food. And he would go to the poor of Kufa and he would deliver it. And Abu Fadl Abbas many times was next to him. And so from a young age, he's instilling these principles and instilling these types of values. And so he knows that this care for Abu Fadl Abbas, it needs to be done in a very meticulous manner. Because the role that Abu Fadl Abbas has is a very big role. There's another tradition that we had when Abu Fadl Abbas was maybe 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10 years of age, that somebody came to Imam Ali. And when they came to Imam Ali, Abbas was standing behind Imam. And this person who had come to the Imam gifted Imam a sword. And this sword was a very finely crafted sword. And so Imam, he takes it out of the sheath, and it's a beautiful sword. And Imam is holding it, and Abu Fadl Abbas is behind him. And he's looking at this sword, and he's looking at it with big eyes. And Abu Fadl Abbas is just, amazed with the sword. So a few days later, or a few hours later, Imam Ali calls him, and he says, Ya Abbas, Ya Bunayya, Ilayya, come to me. And he asks him, did you like that sword? So Abbas, out of his humbleness, he said nothing. And then he asked Abbas, do you want that sword? And Abbas, again, he said nothing. But a father should be so in tune with their child, he should know what their feelings are. And so we find that Imam Ali, what he did was he took that sword and he gave it to Abu Fadl Abbas. And with that sword, he taught him how to fight, he taught him how to defend, which is going to be of much use for him in the future. We have some accounts of Abu Fadl Abbas in the Battle of Siffin and Naharawan. There's a tradition that in the Battle of Siffin, that Abu Fadl Abbas fought with great distinction. That, it was almost, unbelievable how bravely that this young boy had fought. Abu Fadl Abbas, maybe 11 years of age, when he enters the battlefield, because he's tall, nobody thought he was a child. So when he would enter the battlefield, he would put a burqa in his, on his face, so that people couldn't see how young he really was. So he would cover his face, and he would enter into the battlefield. But the way that he used to walk in the battlefield, with his head held high, people would already be intimidated. Nobody would want to fight him. When Abu Fadl Abbas entered into the Battle of Siffin with Muawiyah's forces, they were asking, who is this person that's entering the battlefield? Even though he was holding a sword and walking, but he was walking with such charisma. He had this aura which was surrounding him, that people were amazed at, who is this person? And so there were these whisperings that this is the son of Abu Talib, this is the son of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. But they knew that this person, whoever he was, whether he was the son of Imam or not, they knew that the way his mannerisms and his demeanor was that this was not an ordinary individual. And so when he entered into the battlefield, Muawiyah told his soldiers to go and fight him. None of the soldiers, even though he's a person of 11 years of age, not one of the soldiers budged. Muawiyah is telling them to go and fight, and he's encouraging them that if you go defeat this person, I'll give you this amount of gold and silver. None of them budged. Finally, Muawiyah, he tells one of his soldiers, and his name was Ibn Sha'atha. And Ibn Sha'atha was one of the most ferocious fighters of Muawiyah's army. He's somebody who was hardened in many battles that he fought in Syria. And so he told Ibn Sha'atha, and I want you to go fight Abu Fadl Abbas. So Ibn Sha'atha said to him that I'm your best soldier. I'm equivalent to 10,000 of your cavalry. You're asking me to go fight this person? This person is a nobody. This person has his face covered. I have a list of great victories, and this person, nobody even recognizes who he is. How can somebody like me go and fight him? So he tells Muawiyah, I'm not going to go fight him, but I have 7 children who are here. And these 7 children of mine, I've trained them, and they're going to go and fight this young man. And so he said, I'm going to send the youngest of my children. So the youngest of his 7 children, Ibn Sha'atha sends him to go fight with Abu Fadl Abbas. But he didn't know who Abu Fadl Abbas was. And he went to the battlefield, he began fighting, and within a few moments, the youngest child of Ibn Sha'atha was killed. Then after that, Ibn Sha'atha turned to his 6th child, and he said, go and get revenge for your brother's death. The 6th child went, and then he was also killed by Abu Fadl Abbas. Then the 5th, then the 4th, the 3rd, then the 2nd, and the eldest went, and they were all killed by Abu Fadl Abbas. And at that moment, Ibn Sha'atha became so infuriated, so enraged, he asked him, who is he? Who is this person? But Abu Fadl Abbas didn't remove his burqa, didn't remove the covering from his face. Ibn Sha'atha, he enters into the battlefield. And within just a few moments, Abu Fadl Abbas killed him and sent him to wherever his sons were as well. And at this moment, the army of Imam Ali is there, excited, and they're saying Takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, because now there's a hero in their midst. After Abu Fadl Abbas goes and kills Ibn Sha'atha, Imam Ali calls Abu Fadl Abbas. Abbas comes to his father, and Imam removes the burqa from his face. And everybody now sees that it is Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And then he tells Abu Fadl Abbas tells him that let me go and return to the battlefield, and I will give you victory in a very short moment. In just a few minutes, I will end this battle and hand you victory. Imam said to Abu Fadl Abbas, he said, Abbas, no more fighting for you. Today is not the day for you to fight. It's another day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised you. That save your fighting for that day. Save your fighting for the day in which you have to defend your brother, Imam Husayn alayhi salam. The other companions of Imam, they came to him and said, let your son go and fight. Let him go and lead the army to another victory. And Imam Ali said, no, this son of mine, Abu Fadl Abbas, his fighting is reserved for the day of Ashura. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what I want to do right now is I want to just, after hearing somebody's example, how Imam Ali raised his child, I want to look at some of the different parenting styles which are there. If you look at the diagram on the screen, we have 4 different types of parenting styles. If you put on the x-axis, you put on the right side high support, and you put on the left side low support. And on the y-axis, if you put high expectations and low expectations, you get 4 quadrants. And these 4 quadrants are the different parenting styles. I want you to look at this and see, where does Imam Ali fall? How does he raise his children? In what manner does he train Abu Fadl Abbas? If we start from the bottom left, where it's low support and low expectation, this is neglectful parenting. Which means what? Which means the mother and the father, they don't give a lot of attention to the child. And they don't give a lot to their children. If we move up to the top left quadrant, this is low support and high expectation. Which means what? The parents are telling the children, I want you to be extremely successful in your lives. I want you to be extremely good student. I want you to be the top of the class. But they're not giving much support. And so this is dictatorial parenting. If we move to the right, to the top right quadrant, or if we move to the bottom right quadrant, where we have low expectations and high support. Which means what? Which means the parents are showering their child with lots and lots of love, but they're not giving much expectation. What should the child be aspiring to be? In this bottom right quadrant, we get something, a parenting style, which is permissive parenting. And then if we look into the top right, there's high support, but there's also high expectations. Which means what? Which means that the parents, they give the children proper direction, but they're also showering their child with lots and lots of love. Out of these 4 parenting styles, which one is Imam Ali utilizing with his son Abu Fadl Abbas? Which one of these 4 do you think the Imam is using? Which one? Engaged parenting. How is he using engaged parenting? He's using engaged parenting because he's putting high expectations on Abu Fadl Abbas. He's reminding Abu Fadl Abbas that you are going to be the hero of Karbala. He's reminding Abu Fadl Abbas that you have to come to the defense of your brother on the day of Ashura. So he's putting Abu Fadl Abbas at what? At the highest expectation. But at the same time, what is Imam doing? Imam is also giving him high levels of support. How? Because he's encouraging him, because he's training him, because he's kissing him, right? He's showing affection to his child. So this type of parenting is really important, especially because we were talking earlier with some of the brothers. We're living in a time where, in order for our children to get the values of Ahlul Bayt, we have to give them proper attention. And so that means we as parents, we also have to adopt a proper parenting style. We need this type of engaged parenting, where there's high support, but there's also high expectations. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A few years ago, we had a game, and in this game, what happened was we had all the fathers and sons come together, and we asked a series of questions from the children, from the boys, and then we were going to ask the fathers. So we asked the children, we asked the boys, then what is your favorite color? What is your favorite food? What is your favorite game? Right? We asked some of these, what is your favorite dessert? We asked a couple of these questions. And then after we got the answers from the boys, we turned to the father and we asked the father to answer these questions about their son. And in the vast majority of the cases, none of the fathers could answer any of them. They couldn't answer what is their son's favorite color, what is their son's favorite game, what is their son's favorite sports team, what is their son's favorite activity. They weren't able to answer any of these type of things. And so it shows that we need to really work on this. We need to have this engaged type of parenting. A few months ago, I did the same thing with my child. And so I wasn't able to get any of them either. All of my answers were wrong. And then I was surprised. I said, I ask him this question all the time. So it's not the father's fault all the time. Because in my case, what happened is my son, every few days, he changes his answers. So if he likes the color blue, and then one week, the next week, he likes the color green. If he likes a certain type of dessert, after he tries a new dessert, he likes another dessert. So not all fathers are like that. Sometimes the children, they also fluctuate in some of the things that they like. Salawat ala Muhammad In the second part of the speech, what I want to do is I want to point to a very stark quality that Abu Fadl Abbas had in his personality. And that is the quality of yaqeen, the quality of having conviction and certainty in our faith. The verse that I recited in the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. It says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fortifies those who have faith with constant creed. Which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a person who has strong faith, He gives them resilience in their faith. He gives them the ability to have conviction in their faith. Which means that a person's faith, it should not fluctuate. It should not move up and down. Despite the circumstances that we live in, we should always have a constant faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our level of faith shouldn't be something which changes based on our surroundings. Our faith should always be constant and consistent. There's a beautiful tradition from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam where he says, كان عمنا العباس بن علي نافذ البصيرة سلب الإيمان جاهد مع علي عبد الله عليه السلام وأبلى بلاء حسنا ومضى شهيدا. In this tradition by Imam Sadiq, he's describing Abu Fadl Abbas, this quality of having conviction and yaqeen. He says, our uncle Abbas كان نافذ البصيرة. He had basira, he had vision that was penetrating. Salb al-Iman, his Iman was fortified. His Iman was something which never shook. His Iman was something which never wavered. Jahad ma'a Abdullah, he engaged in jihad with Abu Abdullah. Wa abla bala'an hasana. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him through a calamity. But this calamity was a beautiful calamity. It was a good calamity. وَمَضَى شَهِيدًا, and he left this world as a shaheed, as a martyr of Islam. We find that this quality which is in Abul Fadl Abbas's personality is this quality of yaqeen, of having conviction, of having certainty. How can we get conviction and certainty in our religion? The way that we get certainty, the way we get conviction in our religion is with knowledge, is with ma'rifah. And this is where Imam Ali, he describes Abul Fadl Abbas by saying, زَقَّ الْعِلْمَ زَقَّ, that Abul Fadl Abbas, he has gone to the deepest depths of knowledge. A lot of times, because Abul Fadl Abbas, he's overshadowed by Imam Husayn, we don't hear about his knowledge. But Kana Abbas faqihan, he was a jurist, he was an expert in religion. Somebody who grows up in a household that way, how can they not be? And so this quality that we find in Abul Fadl Abbas is this quality of having yaqeen. He has gone and he has acquired the depths of knowledge. We see that, and we see examples of this yaqeen that was in the life of Abul Fadl Abbas. We see other personalities talked about, Abdullah ibn Umar, and there's many more. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, another person. They used to come to the Imam and tell the Imam, then why are you fighting against Yazid? Go and engage in some type of settlement or have some type of negotiation. But one person that we find that never questioned Imam Husayn was Abul Fadl Abbas. He always stood behind Imam, and he never questioned Imam. He never advised the Imam. Why didn't he do that? Because he had yaqeen. He had that conviction, and that whatever Imam Husayn says, that this was a directive of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can never express our own opinion. And so we find in Karbala, in the events of Ashura, this conviction that comes out. On the night of Ashura, Shimr, he requests Abu Bakr Abbas and his brothers to come to the enemy lines to have a negotiation and to have a talk. So Shimr, he comes and he requested Abbas's presence. When Abbas heard that Shimr is asking him to come, he doesn't even pay any attention to it. He doesn't even give him any response until Imam Husayn says that he's calling you, go and see what he wants. So Abu Bakr Abbas, he goes, and as he goes, Shimr is there, and he says that you're a family member of mine. We're part of the same tribe from the mother's side. And so I'm giving you an aman. I'm giving you a letter of safe passage. That if you come onto our side, then you and your family won't be threatened. We find this conviction of Abu Bakr Abbas come out. What does he do? He says, La'anakallah. May Allah banish you from His mercy. May Allah remove you far away from His mercy. He says that you give me safety, you guarantee me security, but the son of Rasulullah is not guaranteed any safety. He said, absolutely not. Not even for one moment do we find that Abu Fadl Abbas's iman it ever shake or it ever wavered. Why? Because of sulbi iman. His iman, it reached the deepest depths of his heart, that it wouldn't allow him to do anything which goes against the imam of his time. This quality of yaqeen, brothers and sisters, is extremely important for us to have. This quality of istiqamah, that no matter what the circumstances are, and we don't shake in our faith, and we don't doubt people, friends, classmates, teachers. They may say things, they may do things, but our iman has to be such that we are uncompromising when it comes to our values. The beauty of this quality of yaqeen is that it generates other good qualities. One of the qualities that it generates the quality of bravery. So ulama, they say that the reason why Abu Bakr Abbas was so brave was because of this yaqeen that he had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's many people that they don't have yaqeen in their faith. They don't have certainty in their faith. So they're constantly fluctuating from here to there. Sometimes they're religious, sometimes they're not religious. Sometimes they're in the mood, sometimes they're not in the mood. It's important that we work on this. We try to get this conviction inside of us. There's an example that during the life of the Prophet, during the early years of Islam, there was a companion of the Prophet by the name of Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh. Ubaydullah was one of the early converts of Islam. And he was somebody who saw all of the torture that the Muslims were undergoing. And so what the Prophet did was he recommended some of the early Muslims that you should migrate to Abyssinia. So this companion, Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh, he migrates to Abyssinia, to Ethiopia. And he's there for a period of time. But because his iman didn't have yaqeen, because he didn't have sulb al-iman, we find in history it's narrated that this person, he left his faith. He moved to Abyssinia, he went and he adopted the religion of Christianity. Why? Because he didn't have yaqeen in his faith. He didn't have yaqeen in his belief, in his creed. So when he was put in a difficult circumstance, when he was put in front of temptation, what happened? He let go of his iman, he let go of his religion. His wife would recommend him to come back to Islam, to migrate back to Medina, to come with the Prophet. But that person, because of lack of certainty, what did it do? It completely destroyed his faith. Salawatu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what we need to have in our faith, and inshallah what I want to highlight from the life of Abbas is this, is to have yaqeen in our faith, to not have doubt, to not become skeptical. If we have a question about our faith, if we have some misunderstanding about our faith, go and get the proper answer for it. There's 3 different levels of yaqeen, and these are examples that are in the Quran. The first level of yaqeen is ilm yaqeen, which means knowledge, which means yaqeen through knowledge. And the second level of yaqeen is ayn yaqeen, which means conviction and certainty through sin. The first one is ilm yaqeen, that we have a certain level of knowledge and we reach a level of certainty. The second level of yaqeen is ayn yaqeen, we see it with our own eyes. And the third one is haqqul yaqeen, the yaqeen which comes through experience. Inshallah, I'll elaborate these 3 and inshallah we'll conclude. The first level, ilm al-yaqeen, what is it? Ilm al-yaqeen, what we're talking about is how do we gain yaqeen like the yaqeen of Abbas. The first step of yaqeen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an intellect. Using this intellect, we try to understand the rational arguments of religion. We understand the arguments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence. We understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sifat. We use our mental aptitude to understand our religion. When we come to a certain level of comprehension and understanding about our religion using our intellect, this is called ilm al-yaqeen, right? And our ulama, they give an example. The example that they give is, for example, if there's a tree line and there's smoke which is coming up, this smoke that you see, you can deduct logically that there's a fire over there. This is ilm al-yaqeen, right? Knowledge which comes through using our intellect. The second type of yaqeen is ayn al-yaqeen, which means what? When we see it. So we go back to the example of the fire, right? We see the smoke, but we get closer and closer, and then now we actually see the fire. We can see the flames, we can see the crack, we can hear the crackling, we can see the burning nature of the fire. This is called ayn al-yaqeen. Ayn al-yaqeen comes when our iman doesn't just stay on the level of our cognitive abilities, it goes to our hearts, right? A part of it comes to our hearts. We have this level of yaqeen when that belief comes into our hearts. And then the third level is haqqul yaqeen, which we actually go and experience. Example, or perhaps a bad example of this fire, is that now you get so close to the fire that you actually go into the fire and you can feel the warmth of it. You feel it. Perhaps a better example with some of our ulama they give is an example if you're in a desert. If you're in a desert, you see, for example, certain animals moving in a certain direction. You see some birds flying in a certain area. And so now you have an idea that there is some water. That's ilm al-yaqeen. Why? Because all of the signs, they point to that there is water over there. And the second level is ayn al-yaqeen. Now you get closer and closer to the water, and now you can actually see the water. You can see the blueness of the water. You can see the oasis which is over there. You can see the watering spring which is there. The third level, haqqul yaqeen, is what? Is actually when you go and you dive into the water. You experience the water. You feel the water. This is what haqqul yaqeen is. And this is the level that Abbas was at. He's somebody who went and he consumed himself with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He took his depths of his soul and he filled it with love of Allah, love of Prophet, love of Ahlul Bayt. And so he was filled with this haqqul yaqeen that he went and he sacrificed his entire life for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. You know, we're very fortunate that in the history of Islam we have these types of individuals who show us how to practice our religion and show us how to practice our faith. The very teachings of Islam are built on the back of these peoples, these individuals like Abbas. Through their hardships, through their blood, through their tears, they allowed Islam to be preserved so that till this day we can practice. Had it not been for these types of individuals, we don't know whether we would have had Islam or not. So we're grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us models like this. We're grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us individuals and personalities who become so magnetic to us. And when we hear about these individuals, our hearts, they automatically gravitate towards these types of personalities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the relationship with our Imam, that which is similar to the relationship between Abbas and his Imam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a life like Abbas. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a death like the death of Abbas. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to serve the cause of our Imam like Abbas served the cause of his Imam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the zuhur of our Imam, our master, and our Sayyid, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjallahu ta'ala, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala